A Campbell Soup Company vice president was fired this week after a secret recording surfaced of him calling the company's products shit for fucking poor people. This is, believe it or bullshit. Martin Bally, who held the title of Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer, allegedly spent 60 minutes at a restaurant systematically explaining to cybersecurity analyst Robert Garza why Campbell Soup is garbage designed for desperate people, why Indian coworkers are functionally useless, and why showing up to work stoned on marijuana edibles is just good time management. The recording emerged November 21st as part of a lawsuit filed in Wayne County Circuit Court. Garza, who'd been working remotely for Campbell's New Jersey headquarters since September 2024, thought he was meeting Bally to discuss his salary. Instead, he pressed record and captured an hour-long masterclass in career suicide covering food quality, business strategy, and racial discrimination. Garza reported the incident to his supervisor. 20 days after informing management he planned to contact Human Resources, he was fired on January 30th. Campbell's initially placed Bally on administrative leave before terminating him completely on December 4th. The company insists its products use real chicken from USDA-approved suppliers and characterizes all claims about bioengineered or 3D printed meat as patently absurd. Florida Attorney General James Uthmire opened an investigation regardless. According to Local 4 News in Detroit, here's how this magnificent disaster actually went down. Robert Garza had been with Campbell's roughly 3 months when he received what looked like a routine meeting request from Martin Bally. Garza trusted his instinct that something wasn't right with Martin and started recording on his phone. What followed was 60-plus minutes of unfiltered executive commentary about Campbell's products, employees, and corporate strategy. "We have shit for fucking poor people," the voice alleged to be Bally announces. "Who buys our shit? I don't buy Campbell's products barely anymore. It's not healthy now that I know what the fuck's in it." The voice pivots to ingredient concerns, targeting what it calls bioengineered meat, before declaring, "I don't want to eat a piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer." Then the recording shifts to Campbell's workforce. "Fucking Indians don't know a fucking thing," the voice states. "They couldn't think for their fucking selves." The speaker also acknowledges workplace substance use, describing instances of arriving to work after consuming marijuana edibles. The rant expands to include Campbell's $2.7 billion acquisition of Sovos Brands, maker of Rao's pasta sauce, with the speaker dismissing it as merely a recipe and a brand, since Campbell's doesn't own any manufacturing plants. The meeting wraps up with Bally praising Garza's work performance, a detail Garza's attorney would later note as magnificently ironic considering the termination letter that followed. Garza kept the recording private initially, but eventually decided to report the comments to his supervisor. The lawsuit claims his supervisor did not encourage him to escalate anything to Human Resources. On January 10, 2025, Garza informed his supervisor he planned to contact HR anyway. 20 days later, he was terminated. Campbell's told media outlets that Garza was fired for good reason after less than 5 months of employment, though they declined to explain what that reason actually was. The company also emphasized that neither Garza nor his attorney mentioned a recording existed until the lawsuit dropped. Garza says finding new employment took 10 months. His attorney, Zachary Runyon, filed suit against Campbell's, Bally, and Garza's supervisor, J.D. Opperly, alleging employment discrimination, retaliation, and maintenance of a racially hostile work environment. When audio segments went public, Campbell's issued increasingly aggressive statements. The company stressed that Bally worked in information technology and has nothing to do with how we make our food. They clarified their chicken comes from long-trusted USDA-approved U.S. suppliers and that all soups use no antibiotics ever chicken meat. After initially placing Bally on leave pending investigation, Campbell's fired him completely. "We apologize for the hurt they have caused," a company spokesperson announced. "This behavior does not reflect our values and the culture of our company." The recording evolved into a public relations catastrophe beyond Michigan. Social media erupted with customers vowing brand boycotts. Florida's Attorney General launched an investigation, citing the state's ban on lab-grown meat and demanding answers from Campbell's, despite the company's repeated denials that any such ingredients exist in their products. In related news tonight, corporate America continues demonstrating that some conversations shouldn't happen anywhere near a record button. Our focus shifts to another instance where someone in authority learned that modern technology preserves statements that should have stayed inside their head. A Louisiana pastor branded a woman a witch during a Sunday sermon after she contacted his church requesting baby formula. Bishop Raymond W. Johnson of Living Faith Christian Center in Baton Rouge delivered the comments responding to a social experiment by Kentucky TikToker Nicole Monroe, who called over 40 religious institutions across America pretending to be a struggling mother requiring emergency assistance. Johnson's church declined to help, informing Monroe they possess no formula or diapers. Monroe's viral video series demonstrated that 33 of 42 churches she contacted refused assistance, while 9 agreed to help, including Islamic centers, a Buddhist temple, and several black churches. The experiment, which Monroe initiated during a government shutdown when SNAP benefits had expired, has accumulated millions of views and ignited debate about charitable obligations. Johnson addressed Monroe directly from his pulpit, announcing the person is low and characterizing her actions as the spirit of a witch. He added, "My Bible says he does not allow that thing to live," citing biblical passages about witchcraft. Monroe, a drug addiction counselor and veteran with an 8-year-old child, reports she had only 300 TikTok followers when launching the experiment. Several other pastors whose churches declined to help have also sermonized against Monroe, with one branding her a woke liberal during a sermon devoted entirely to condemning the experiment. According to reporting from multiple news outlets, here's precisely what the complete timeline actually looked like. Nicole Monroe launched her social experiment October 31st, posting her inaugural video calling a Kentucky church and requesting baby formula. The concept was direct. Pose as a desperate mother with a hungry newborn who hadn't eaten since the previous day, call various religious institutions, and document responses. During each call, Monroe played a recording of a crying baby to amplify urgency. She informed the Sacramento Observer that timing aligned with federal anti-hunger programs exhausting funds during the government shutdown. "Then I started adding the baby," Monroe explained, describing how she incorporated the crying audio to enhance credibility. Over subsequent weeks, she posted 37 videos documenting calls to churches across multiple states. The pattern solidified rapidly. Most churches delivered variations of identical responses. They didn't possess formula, they couldn't assist currently, or they suggested Monroe contact local government agencies or visit a store. Some churches explained they serve congregations of older people without infant resources. Others mandated that Monroe be a member or at minimum know someone who attended. Lakewood Church in Houston, one of America's largest megachurches led by Pastor Joel Osteen, informed Monroe she would need to submit an application through their benevolence ministry and wait days or potentially weeks for approval while her hypothetical baby starved. The churches that immediately agreed to help demonstrated notable patterns. Islamic centers and mosques responded first, offering assistance without hesitation or documentation. Several historically black churches also agreed, requesting only Monroe's contact information to coordinate delivery. A Buddhist temple offered help. The handful of white churches that provided assistance did so only after Monroe had achieved viral status. On November 7th, Monroe called Living Faith Christian Center in Baton Rouge. A church representative answered and transferred her to another staff member. "We don't have any formula around, darling. I'm sorry, none. No diapers, anything for babies," the person stated. Monroe inquired whether they could acquire formula for her to collect. "No, we can't right now. I'm sorry," came the response, and the call terminated. The following Sunday, Bishop Raymond W. Johnson addressed the situation during his sermon. "The person who goes around calling churches and putting the voice of a baby crying in the background," Johnson announced. "Really, the person is low." He accelerated, building momentum. "How you gonna do your little dirty deed? And you know, it's just the spirit of a witch. It's a witch. And my Bible says he does not allow that thing to live. So you have to watch when you're fooling with God." Johnson also asserted his church had fed thousands without seeking publicity and mentioned lending his personal credit card to struggling mothers. The sermon was uploaded to the church's YouTube channel, but subsequently removed following backlash. Monroe informed news outlets the response has been emotionally challenging, and that she's wrestled with the embarrassment churches have experienced. She emphasized wanting people to concentrate on institutions that helped, rather than those that refused. "Out of all of it, there's a gap that needs to be fixed," she stated. "Not even just on the church, it's on everybody, even the community." Some churches Monroe contacted have since disconnected their phone lines. Others argue the experiment was unfair because not all churches maintain food pantries or benevolence funds. One pastor, whose church wasn't included, consumed over 20 minutes during his own sermon characterizing Monroe as folly, seductive, and knowing nothing. Johnson's sermon stands as his final public statement. The church has not responded to media requests beyond announcing a holiday food distribution event. Both stories tonight featured people who responded to criticism by doubling down spectacularly instead of just shutting the fuck up. A corporate executive gets secretly recorded trashing his own products and customers, then gets fired. A pastor refuses to help a supposedly starving baby, then calls the woman who exposed him a witch who shouldn't be allowed to live according to his Bible. So here's tonight's question. Have you ever watched someone transform a bad situation into an absolute catastrophe by refusing to take the L and move on? Could be at work, could be online, doesn't matter. Real stories only. Drop them in the comments. That's Believe It or Bullshit. Hit that like and subscribe button because who knows what other insane shit I'll dig up next time.